Lynda Kinkade, welcome to CNN Newsroom and thanks for joining us. We have a CNN alert just into us. 3 people have been killed and dozens injured after a residential building collapsed in the Kenyan capital of Nairobi. This happened earlier on Friday. Rescue workers have been clearing rubble and attempting to rescue trapped people. Nairobi has seen several building collapses in recent years. Well, right now, one of the most prominent people in the fight against climate change is speaking out. Greta Thunberg is talking as part of a panel at the United Nations Climate Conference in Madrid. Let's just take a listen to what she had to say moments ago.
Earlier today, we had a climate strike in Stockholm, and we are really gaining momentum in Sweden. We are getting bigger and bigger. And our voices are being heard more and more. But of course, that does not translate into political action, as I can imagine most other places. But we continue. In Stockholm, in Sweden, they are striking every Friday from school. Huh? And they have been doing that for 1.5 years now, and they are very patient. Of course, they should not listen to me before anyone else. A figure like me, I'm just an activist, a climate activist, a small part of a very big movement. And yes, we need more climate activists.
We certainly do, and that exactly is what Greta Thunberg is trying to do to push this movement. Senior international correspondent Arwa Damon joins us now for more on this and her message. And of course, as we know, Greta Thunberg spent 3 weeks on a yacht getting to Madrid to share this message and to try and potentially convince climate change skeptics to get on board with this movement.
Yeah, she is, and her message is very clear when it comes to addressing the climate change skeptics, and that is that the science speaks for itself. There is broad consensus among the scientific community that the climate crisis is real and it is caused by us and our inexplicable, uncontrolled desire for more, whether that is more fossil fuels or more electronics or more anything. Our consumption at every single level is out of control, and now we are up front with the reality of the price that we are very likely going to have to pay unless the activism of people like Greta and the tens of thousands of other youth across the world that are also standing up and demanding that their governments do something actually begins to bring about this kind of change. We have been aware of the impact that we are having on the climate for decades now, and yet successive governments time and time again have not done anything, or anything that they have done has quite simply not been enough to really bring about the kind of change in global emissions that we need to see to actually prevent our world not from warming 1.5 degrees or 2 degrees. What's being talked about right now is 3 degrees of warming, and that is potentially catastrophic. That potentially causes the kind of change that up until now we really only saw in Hollywood movie scripts. And it is fairly difficult perhaps for a lot of people to grasp exactly what that means. 3 degrees warming, it may not seem like it's that big of a deal, or it may seem like the effects of it are going to be felt in a time that feels quite distant, albeit in this century, that there isn't necessarily that sort of galvanizing effort, not just among the public, but among governments itself. There is almost this sense that as governments are going into these kinds of talks, they're still looking at it from the perspective of every nation for itself and how can I get the best deal for my country. And while that is on the one hand understandable, unlike other crises that the global community normally deals with, and that is war, weather disasters, and humanitarian crises, when you have inaction when it comes to that, it affects most of the time the area that the crisis itself is affecting. When we talk about the climate crisis, inaction on that, Lynda, is going to doom all of us. And that really is what propels a lot of the anger that Greta and others across the world feel, especially among the youth, because it is effectively the older generations that have destroyed the planet, very nearly brought it to, as science would say, this global tipping point. And now it's their generation that is really the bulk of the momentum behind the demands that governments actually take the needed actions to reduce emissions to, at the very least, a level where they don't cause even more destruction.
Absolutely. Well, as Greta says, people underestimate angry kids. So we'll see what comes out of that climate change conference. And we'll talk to you, Arwa, when you do get to Madrid. Arwa Damon there for us. Thanks so much. Well, one of the effects of climate change is more frequent and more fierce wildfires. Right now, a haze hangs over Sydney Harbour due to smoke from several bushfires that have merged to form a mega fire. Now, firefighters in New South Wales are struggling to contain more than 100 fires that are burning there. Tiffany Genders has more.
This is round 2 for the residents of Mangrove Mountain. Fire breathing down their necks yet again.
There's nothing we can do to stop the advancement of the fire at this stage other than protect life and property.
Homes nestled in bushland with nowhere to hide, owner Rob Meggs chose to stay and fight. Did your heart skip a few beats?
I don't know. I haven't had time to check it. I'll just go and put the blood pressure monitor on and see where it's at.
Look, this is almost just a carbon copy repeat of what was happening yesterday.
A mighty westerly sent flames roaring up the mountain, racing towards homes.
Right, you want to move up another 100 metres? This house is going to come under threat now.
Within minutes, these rural retreats were surrounded.
Well, it's like someone ripping your heart off, eh? That's how you feel at the moment, but what you do, that's life.
Several separate bushfires have already moulded into a monster, stretching across Sydney's north to the Hawkesbury, Central Coast and Hunter. It's not only lives and properties under threat, but one of the region's multi-billion-dollar assets. Mangrove Creek Dam supplies drinking water to every household on the Central Coast. If the bushland around it goes up, water quality will go down the drain.
Where fires come in close to catchments, we do end up with the real chance of increased filtration.
A never-ending battle that's tiring everyone and everything. Tiffany Genders, 9 News.
Well, for more on this, I want to bring in CNN meteorologist Chad Myers. And Chad, I mean, those fires obviously joining to form this mega fire. And from the family and friends I've been speaking to back home, they said the pollution from those fires is horrendous.
Absolutely. Not quite where we are with Delhi, but when you breathe it for hour and hour and hour, day after day after day, it becomes a cumulative effect. This is what a normal picture should look like of Sydney. This is what it looked like a couple days ago. Hardly see it. Now a little bit of a closer picture where you can see the bridge right over the river, and all of a sudden you can't see it. And this is what the people there have been dealing with masks on, the N95 masks. It has been a true mess to the west here with those westerly winds coming in from the west to the east at almost 50 kilometers per hour. And that's enough to fan these flames. Now technically, climate change didn't start the fires. But technically, it's the drought that is there, and it's exactly what we expect from climate change. That is what is creating this worst-case scenario. The rain has been non-existent. The ground is completely dry. There's nothing there to stop this wildfire. Number of wildfires, many of them out of control. The number yesterday on emergency was something like 7, and today we're talking about this mega complex where they have burned. There are 100 fires burning right now in this same area. Now, not like we were back in October and November, where the radiative power, as you see it from the satellite, and they can actually feel and see the heat. That's when it was truly, truly bad. But now we're ramping back up here in December, and there hasn't been one bit of rainfall yet. Overall, for the entire Australian country, something around normal for fires this time of year. But the problem is this year, all concentrated in New South Wales. Linda.
And of course, Chad, this time of year, heading into summer in Australia, you typically do see bushfires, but the number we're seeing, it's unprecedented, right?
It is because of where they are, how close to the populated areas of the East Coast. Now, let's go back to this graphic right here. The gray was a area that was going to be the average of all of Australia for the year. And so all of Australia, you see all these gray little marks. This is how much we should be seeing, and many days we did see above that. But it's not the average for the country, because parts of the country are in fact not burning. But it's the fact that right now, New South Wales is burning. So you have all of those people and all of those areas there with population densities, nearly 5 million people that are getting this respiration problem. And the fires are done for today. They're slowing down for today, but the winds pick back up tomorrow, something that they do not want to hear.
No, they certainly do not want that. All right, Chad Myers, good to have you on the case for us. Thank you.
You bet.
Well, still ahead in Washington, the Democrats are setting the stage for impeachment. Donald Trump could become the third American president to be impeached. We're going to take a look at why he's ready to get it over with. And tracking down a pedophile priest, our Nema El-Bagger joins me live to take us inside her exclusive report. Why it was a priest who was convicted of sex abuse moved to Africa to work with families. We'll have that next.